Hi guys, we are back with our series that we are doing on menstruation and nutrition. So we start at 5 and we are just waiting. Hi Anurag. Hello. So we are just waiting for our star nutritionist Geeta to join, and once she joins, we will start with today's topic. Hi Shashi, hi Yadav. Hi for joining. Hi Apeksha, thank you for joining. Yeah, so we are just waiting for Geeta. Today is a very interesting topic, actually, even for me, because I never knew that food had such a important part to play in terms of our moods, especially when it comes to menstruation and, when we are on our periods and we have our terrible mood swings. Some of us do, some of us don't, but I have mine, and I would love to know more about how maybe food can help me balance out my moods. So it's pretty exciting. Hi Apeksha. Hi Devu, thank you for joining. Hi Nehal. And Apeksha, like last time, if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat or on the comments, so we'll take them up. Hi Geeta, you're here. So let's try and see if we can help her get in. Hi Vijinder, thank you for joining us. Hi.
Hi, Aditi, good evening. And good evening
Yes.
to everybody there.
Yes, we have people as usual joining us even before 5. So I think it's nice to have people, when we are talking so much.
How wonderful. And thank you for all those early birds who've been more prompt and fun.
Yes, hi Nandita, hi Sakshi, thank you all for coming in. So let's start, Geeta. Are you ready?
Looking
Cool.
forward.
Yeah, so like I was just saying, before it turned 5, that I'm very excited about today because it's very interesting to understand that how food plays a role in our moods, especially and especially for women, because of all the hormonal changes that are going on in terms of our menstrual cycles and everything that we go through the month. How does it affect moods, and especially again the angle of us also being athletes, right? Because mentally being ready to play our tournaments, to compete, all of this requires us to be in a very stable mindset, right? And with our hormones going haywire and things, sometimes you're just so irritated with everything, still keeping that calm and anything that basically helps us keep calm and stable could really be very helpful as athletes as well. So it's interesting that there is a connection there, and there is food that maybe could help us in terms of keeping that stability and keeping stable through our practice sessions and, through our tournaments, especially our tournaments. So the first question is exactly that, what is this connection of mood and food? How does that, it rhymes. So it rhymes and there is a connection. So can you just elaborate on that?
Totally. I think today we definitely know that, what we eat is influencing us, not just in terms of, our body composition as an athlete, which is so critical about maintaining, your muscle mass and also your fat, but also your brain function. And we also highlighted on a lot of foods that can not be very beneficial too, from sugar, salt, caffeine, how to moderate those aspects. So maybe we will go, food group wise, so I don't miss out on any important, point. So what we eat itself has a direct impact. And as we know that, premenstrual syndrome or certain, some individuals, some females may be more affected than the others. And it really varies and complex for several reasons. Now, about 2 weeks earlier itself, the mood, changes can start for some, and they can be irritable. But you can, take care of how you feed yourself, so that you can avoid these, huge ebbs and the kind of the changes that can
ups
occur.
and downs.
Yes, absolutely. So if we can look at, serotonin, now we already know that when estrogen is high during ovulation, and then it falls at the time of your menstrual cycle, because the implantation or your ova is not being used. So which means that your serotonin is low, and that is why you sometimes feel a bit blue, or you know that you're PMSing and you already know your menstrual cycle is arriving, because there are mood changes, irritability, and apart so many other things that, bloating to tenderness to, breast sensitivity, or so many other changes that can occur with that. So serotonin itself goes up by incorporating complex carbohydrate. Now, what is slow digesting carbohydrate? As we talked about it in the past itself, one tip here, because I want to include something new every time I'm speaking to the audience. You could look at, cooled potatoes, sweet potatoes, plantains, and rice. It not only cuts the calorie, because once it cools down, the calorie is cut down, meaning the body cannot digest it because it converts to resistant starch. Now, the benefit here is when you eat foods like bananas or rice, it directly feeds serotonin, the neurotransmitter that is in your brain, and that is what kind of learn and makes you feel good. So and also there is a craving, which means the tendency to eat a little more when you are, in your premenstrual period. So if you eat complex carbohydrate, meaning that you can look at some planning where you're able to eat these cooled food items or dishes, then that way you're not only absorbing less calorie, you're able to eat more, and also most importantly, your serotonin goes up, so it makes you feel good. So you plan it in such a way. Most importantly, these resistant starch are good fibers, and that is what feeds the gut bacteria, where they ferment, and they are what improves your immunity to your gut-brain axis, what we call eventually. And also one important tip here, Aditi, on the, or rather, you got to look at it in a long-term approach. You cannot just say, I'm PMSing, so 2 days I will eat healthy and go back to unhealthy habits.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I think definitely long run, you got to kind of keep at it, as an ongoing process. I'm not saying do this to the T all times. It's, I think, not humanly possible. But the gut bacteria is extremely important, because your serotonin, like I mentioned earlier, is absorbed in the stomach. So, and it affects your brain directly. That's the gut bi-directional, meaning that how you feel also kind of impacts your gut, your immunity, and also what you eat kind of keeps the good chemicals in your brain. So one thing would be this complex carbohydrate. I've already talked of how you need to look at good quality protein, because that is what can be again to this neurotransmitter serotonin. So now, based on how much budget or how much access the athlete has, or the females are able to lay their hands upon, you could look at simple things from curd, or your eggs, which are very doable. High quality protein rich in tryptophan, so that feeds the good bacteria. Now, omega-3, we know that the good fats are also equally important. So it could be as simple as sardines and mackerel, which are the good quality fats, like which give you omega-3. So they're reasonable, low in mercury contamination. Try to eat them. If you're vegetarian, then you need to obviously eat a little larger amounts of the vegetarian form of omega-3 called the inulin. So you get chia seeds, walnuts, and maybe soak these, so that these are also on the stomach. Then going to the vitamin D, most important, if you're deficient, because vitamin D foods are very difficult to get in vegetarian foods.
Yeah.
So look at, because other than eggs and oily fish, vitamin D is not available. Or in the vegetarian form, it's only sun-grown mushroom, and that was only D2. It is not readily absorbed. What is absorbed in the body is D3. So if you're always falling ill, recovery is poor, muscle mass is low, not losing weight, that's when an athlete definitely needs to do vitamin D test. And these are again very, very time consuming. It takes months for your levels to go up because sometimes smaller doses are absorbed better. Unlike what we do a 60,000 IU, many athletes actually think you keep taking those large doses and then you bump up the values. It is not necessarily so. Not necessarily so. Most importantly, vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. So good fats are important for its absorption. If you're deficient, you definitely need to supplement. Coming to certain other important minerals, most important magnesium. That has a direct impact on so many chemical reactions in the body, and magnesium is a muscle relaxant. It's an anti-stress mineral, particularly with high training load. Do have high cortisol, and that can also be the tendency to overeat because if you're not rested enough. Cortisol is a hormone that makes you hungry, right? So you will tend to overeat. So magnesium can be got from as simple as almonds, and almonds maybe sometimes based on the season can be expensive. So you could look at simple things like your watermelon seeds, which are very reasonable. You can look at pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds. So these seeds are quite economical way to get magnesium. And of course, dark chocolate, I think last time.
Yeah.
So you soak these seeds and they're quite light on the stomach. So in a gist, I think we've covered all of this, and not to forget the importance of fruits and vegetables. That goes without saying. Hydration, water intake is equally important.
Right. So you spoke about seeds, which is very interesting. Actually, I have never kind of had watermelon seeds as something that I pop into my mouth. I mean, how do you say we access it? I mean, is it about you actually do you get that in the market in terms of the seeds, or you actually get the fruit and then eat those seeds as well? And how do you eat them? Like you just pop it in, or how does it work?
Right. So that's a good question you asked, Aditi, because one aspect is to say what you could eat, but then what happens to the absorption, bioavailability, and how much you absorb is a different ballgame, and that's where the gut microbiota or the bacteria we are talking about comes to the importance. So these seeds are because unless and until you really have the patience, because these seeds are readily available from those red pumpkins to the watermelon that you eat, but it's very cumbersome to actually manually de-seed them.
Sure.
So unless until you really have the patience and the time to nibble on it and kind of keep at it, it may be more viable and practical for you to just buy them or procure them from a store, easily available, so you can purchase them in smaller quantities. So my tip here is, I already told you, soaking is better because sometimes they have anti-nutritional properties like phytates. Now, it's really important. But however, certain foods, when eaten, together, for example, if you're eating dark green leafy vegetables, female athletes definitely need very high amount of iron to make the loss of the blood. But however, if you're eating, say, dark green leafy vegetable and with curd, that is calcium rich, both of them have the same absorption pathways. So they fight with one another, and the body absorbs primarily what it is deficient in. And it's complicated. There's a nutrient interaction. So similarly, if athletes are having something very nutritious like eggs, and in our Indian community, it's a typical habit to consume tea, coffee along with your breakfast. So sometimes I've even seen guys wind up with either tea or coffee after lunch.
Yeah.
That's a really bad habit, because then it chelates, meaning there are nutrient interaction. So coffee and tea have tannins and caffeine. So they bind to the important iron, calcium, magnesium, sometimes even zinc. So everything needs to be kind of taken into account. Particularly if you are doing the tea and coffee, my tip here will be, as science says, please give at least 1 hour gap. Space it out. Like, see, a lot of athletes also ask me, but why green tea? It's very full of, it's so high in caffeine, or it has, caffeine. So everything you read here on .com or Google may not be true, because caffeine in green tea has only 25 mg, whereas if you take a strong cup of coffee, it could be 150, 200 mg, and max we want to do mg a day, which is about roughly 2 cups of coffee. So it depends how an athlete needs to space that, because there is a craving to eat sugar, salt, coffee, sometimes, because you don't know what you want to reach out to. So like I was suggesting, please do a PMS cleaning. As we talked of spring cleaning, it's a good idea to look at, planning for your menstruation as a ritual. So you look at, getting rid of all the processed foods. And the most important thing here that, it was a good learning for me also. If you overdo the fat, especially typically if you eat ready-made cookies, biscuits, anything off the packet, the fats are more calorie dense, meaning 1 gram gives you 9 calories and 1 gram of carbohydrate or protein gives only 4 calories. So when you eat anything fattening, it just stays there as a concrete layer in the stomach, delaying absorption, which means sometimes very fat heavy food or very salty food. And it is going to cut the absorption of carbohydrates. And that way, many times, if you're already feeling low and carbohydrates pep you up, so you may be eating something as healthy as, say, even a whole grain cracker with some, peanut butter or something before you're training as an athlete. But if you eat, say, for example, a pack of chips or something that also comes with a whole lot of fat in it, the absorption of carbohydrates is delayed, which means your feel-good factor of serotonin is going to be that much further cut off. So it's good for simple options, plant-based sometimes, because there's also a lot of bloating. I was talking of hydration, because your green tea, peppermint tea, carminatives, just boiling jeera water or, jeera, ajwain, song, just boiling these water, because many times when you are confused or don't know how you feel, when there's a craving to eat, you many times forget to drink water. I think because sometimes and if very highly salty foods, you're also going to again increase, kind of feel your thirst sets in to kind of excrete that sodium from your kidneys. But however, if you have the urge to eat something, it may sometimes be a good idea to look at all of these beverages, like even ginger tea. Boiling the ginger is good for cramps. It's good for the bloating. And, the water is calorie free. So you could look at these carminatives and, green tea to so many, other beverages which we just talked of, which are calorie free. A green tea versus, like we just talked of, our caffeine. The caffeine makes you feel good. It increases your attention. It's a central nervous system stimulant, but at the same time, it's also going to kind of lead to those caffeine withdrawal symptoms. Again, based on do you respond or don't respond. So again, caffeine, different individuals react differently to caffeine.
Sure. So, I mean, you listed out some of the things like omega-3, and then there's vitamin D, there's complex carbohydrates, which have direct connection with making you feel better. Rather than having a nice chocolate cookie, you rather go for a cracker or something which is basically, complex, in terms of, it doesn't just kind of sit in your stomach, because that actually you feel like if you eat something, I mean, it comes with the food cravings as well, right? I mean, you are craving for something and you kind of just grab that cake and you want to eat it. But it actually is not going to help you feel better. That's what you're saying, right? It's not going to actually help you feel better. It's actually going to make you feel worse, maybe. Isn't that what you're trying to say?
So I'm not saying that don't eat the cake or the cookie. What my suggestion here is, try and stick to wholesome food whenever possible, for the reason that, it depends one or day, because, I think we're all humans and we have a craving. Like anytime somebody tells me I feel like eating a cake, I think what is important is to understand, okay, would you like to eat a cheesecake, or would you like to eat some kind of, cake maybe which doesn't have very high amount of cream, like say a Black Forest or something that's soaking syrup or, that heavy cream. Like, for example, if you want to eat a sweet is a sweet. You can't tell an athlete, hey, if you have a craving for sweet, maybe you should eat a carrot. It never matches, I mean, so if an athlete wants to eat a sweet, then maybe you will say, hey, can you eat some kind of a protein-rich sweet? It could be, say, a rasgulla, or can you eat a peda, which is not deep fried? It has some moderation, it can still be consumed. But just educating people about what is calorie density, because calories are not the same. You may get a calorie eating a jamun, which is deep fried. Also, you may get a calorie eating, like, for example, when the craving hits you, magnesium, that is your dark chocolate, not only gives you your magnesium, it is good in cocoa, is also got iron. Most importantly, I think our audience may not know this, dark chocolate is awesome to feed your gut bacteria. Your bifidobacterium feeds off that cocoa or your dark chocolate. So, but however, because all chocolates have very high amount of sugar, milk chocolate is virtually no chocolate, but the theoflavins or whatever the flavonoids in these dark chocolates that you want, then try and stick to the ones that is recommended as 70% or more, which still have some sugar, but they have lower sugar content.
Okay, understood. And so there are two questions here. One is come from Muskan, who's with us right now. That is, one is on the hydration part. Like, in terms of hydration, when we speak about athletes, especially athletes hydrating themselves, what could be the right amount of water that we need to put into our bodies? That is one. And the second part was about. Sorry, am I back? I just got a call. I'm so sorry. This is the second thing that I wanted to ask you about was about the vitamin D that you spoke. So, like you said, that vitamin D is not that easily available in the vegetarian foods that we have. And if there is an athlete who's a vegetarian, do you recommend we take supplements? I mean, do they have the same amount of use or same amount of impact as maybe a natural vitamin D food? So these are the two questions. One is on hydration. How much water should we have in terms of female athletes, and also keeping our menstrual cycles in place? And second is vitamin D supplements. Do they really work? Do they don't work?
So now hydration again is varied and depends on the environment, the training conditions, type of sport again.
Okay.
We cannot,
Okay.
but very standard guidelines like about 5 to 7 ml before your workout. One tip about
Okay.
hydration, like I always tell the athletes, remember to drink through the day, guys. You can't just do it because you are in the moment and you're training. So hydration is very important. You don't need any fancy electrolyte or energy drinks. You could do simple isotonic drinks at home. 1 glass of water, like I always educate. 6% is nothing but 1 teaspoon of sugar, added honey, and you add 1 pinches of salt. That is a homemade isotonic drink. Okay, 6% glucose solution. You could even do tender coconut water, but tender coconut water doesn't have enough sodium. So remember to add a few pinches of salt in your tender coconut water if you use that. Now, also salt holds the water in the body. So it is very important that you look at retaining the water. Many athletes, what they do is they overhydrate with plain water without realizing that it dilutes the body fluids. And that because you need the electrolyte. And if you're looking at an electrolyte solution, which you will need only if you train beyond 45 minutes, if you have high intensity workout, you're training outdoors, being in a hot environment or, humid conditions when it's very, very warm, then positively you need a lot of electrolytes. Look for electrolyte solutions which only give you sodium, chloride, potassium, magnesium. You don't need branch amino acids. You don't need or so many other jargon unless until it's very, very crucial or pre-competition season. And, honestly, now we know that branch amino acids itself may not be needed. More focus should be on the protein. So, and then what is important is you don't need to do sweat patch tests, which are again complicated. So, there are simple strategies where you can track your hydration. Simple thing as your pee check, which is the urine color. Many times on rising or after your training, it will tend to be on slightly a yellow tinge, and that's perfectly normal. But however, whenever possible, try and keep it as transparent as possible and track it through the day, because many athletes forget sometimes to drink water. Now, most important is after your training is over, you weigh yourself. Twice, actually. You weigh yourself before your training, you weigh yourself after your training. And if all you have lost, for example, 50 kgs, your 50 kgs, you lost 1 kg, you're 49 kgs. You just have to remember to drink 1 liter water to make up so that you have back to your 50 kgs. And when you drink the water, please remember you could do simple things like me. Or, you basically remember to drink the water with some electrolytes. It could be chai, buttermilk, or, there can be salt in it. It can be green tea, iced tea. So many other hydration solutions can be used. Jaljeera pani. Anything that can improve your water intake as hydrate, like your flavored water, infused water. But remember the electrolytes are needed, because if you overdrink plain water, it leads to something called as, hyponatremia. Okay, where the potassium falls, and or for that matter, sodium. There is dilution of water, body fluids. So which means that it will lead to more discomfort and nausea and so many other feelings, especially if you do a intense session. So that was one. Now vitamin D. Now coming to the vitamin D, very, very important for athletes, because vitamin D is not just needed for the bones and your recovery, but vitamin D, like we are talking of food for mood. If you're vitamin D deficient, sometimes you may feel very blue, sullen, and you may be teary, or sometimes for immunity. That's another classical clinical symptom of having vitamin D deficiency. So also, Aditi, it's very important as professionals and highly qualified individuals. I think we ought to educate our audience, right? It's very important to do these blood tests. A good starting point is to start with a blood test. It's quite, you don't have to do it very often, maybe once in, say, 3-4 months or 6 months. That's a good starting point for you to evaluate what is your baseline serum vitamin D level. And based on that, we need to supplement. It's not about how just relying on clinical symptoms or how a dietitian feels. You may be falling more activity, severe DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. You may have a lot of, other issues. But we cannot just pinpoint and say, hey, you know what, I think you're feeling all of this because of vitamin D deficiency. I mean, that may not be protocol. So it's good to be scientific, good to have some data and start from there to understand what should be your loading dose and what should be your maintenance dose. And then periodically you need to reevaluate, reassess. I think that is the right thing to do.
Okay. Understood. But I mean, in terms of supplementing with a tablet, like a lot of times we tend to get these tablets, or there are sachets like powders that you get to kind of get your vitamin D levels high, especially you're very low on it. So do you think there is a problem with that at all? Or I mean, generally everybody is like a little wary, and especially with athletes, right? They're wary about tablets and powders and stuff like that. So, so is it okay?
Oh, no, oh dear. The rule of thumb here is these are extremely scientific, provided you go consult a sports medicine, your doctor, or either a qualified dietitian who follows the scientific protocol and ethics. So it's not about just taking ad hoc. Supplementation is absolutely safe and essential. There's no stigma to say you shouldn't take. In fact, on the contrary, it will be extremely beneficial for you to supplement. So it goes without saying you ought to take if you have nutritional deficiency, because many times, even if you are a non-vegetarian and you consume foods like chicken, fish, and meat, the value sometimes may not go up instantaneously. It takes months. So supplementation is the only way out. It's extremely, extremely safe. So even the vegetarian, particularly all the more the vegetarians will need it, because you really don't have many options in veg food.
Okay, understood. Great. Thank you for that. So, lastly, I mean, in the last thing that I have wanted to talk to you about today was about preparation, right? I mean, there is the food that we eat, but then there is also the preparing of it, right? I mean, it matters. I mean, how much butter do you put in your sabzi, or how much oil do you use? I mean, all of those things, I'm sure they matter in terms of the nutrition content that that food is going to have. So can you just enlighten us on that, like in terms of preparing your food? What are the things that we need to keep in mind?
Since you highlighted the oils, I think one good input here is please avoid sunflower oil, because what we really need is the omega-3 or the good fats like the monounsaturated heart healthy fats. So I know that a lot of guys follow a bit of I got distracted because of my light just got dim. So a lot of individuals I interact with, I know by default use sunflower oil because they think there's sapola to whatever. I mean, sunflower oil is what is commonly available, but they're very high in omega-6, so you really don't want that. And exercise-induced inflammation is already another hassle that an athlete has to deal with. So what you really need to look at is the ratio between the good fats, the omega-3 and omega-6. So vegetable oils are better if you use minimum. In moderation, ghee is excellent. So that was one tip on the side. But again, when it comes to preparation, I already told you, cooked foods definitely smoked are better absorbed unless and until very rarely we know that certain vitamin C rich foods are better eaten raw. But cooking can actually enhance the absorption, be it spinach or be it tomato cooked in a bit of oil, because these luteins, zeaxanthin, all these good pigments are absorbed only after cooking. So carbohydrates, I already gave a tip of how you can cool them, so that way you get the best of everything, from resistance bacteria to serotonin. And complex carbohydrates are better instead of eating processed foods directly off a packet. Now, most important tip here when it comes to the protein, always remember that whenever you deal with protein, raw is not good, because cooking improves protein digestion. So it could be as simple as particularly your eggs or chicken. Remember that boiling is a very good method, because whenever you use water as a medium, there are no side effects unless and until, like, for example, if you think tandoori food is charbroiled food, many guys like, they think, oh, we're eating protein, so let's eat barbecue, tandoori, grilled, but it's
Yeah.
charbroiled. Overcooking the protein or high temperature. For example, you're making eggs, you burn the omelette, it's totally dry and rubbery. So, it's denaturation, meaning that the protein is not going to be absorbed well because half of it is denatured or not available for the body. So one tip here is, a tablespoon of tomato juice or even, milk that softens the texture of these, the
Proteins.
egg protein, and absorption is better. So always remember to use, very low flame. Similarly with nuts and seeds, because I'm a big fan of being a vegetarian myself mostly. I'm a big fan of nuts and seeds. So what happens is these again, are very appetizing, particularly if they are roasted. So though I do roast, in the oven, but however, one important tip here again is don't overdo it. Ideally, we need to restrict it to below 150 degrees. So meaning that, or if you're doing it on the stove, always keep the flame very low, and don't burn them because the Millard's reaction or the acrylamide, the chemicals that form in these are not favorable again. So moderate heat, ideally they say not more than 20 minutes, but believe me, I think I do even 30 or 40 minutes because then you don't get that crunchy texture you do.
Right.
So a tip that you could look at, and sometimes if you're consuming them raw, like I already told you, soak them so that you can kind of avoid those phytates or phytic acid. So that itself brings down the magnesium content. Like the almonds, when you soak them, I know a lot of the clients who actually think we have soaked it, so we'll eat it. But the skin, though gives you fiber, also gives you tannins. So tannins again interact with magnesium. So you can peel off the skin of the almonds.
Skin of it, yeah.
Possible. So I think this is one tip. And if you deep fry, always remember that you need to use only, oils that handle higher temperature, ideally ghee, coconut oil. Coincidentally, sunflower oil is the best oil because of the high smoke point. But however, sunflower oil is not good on a daily basis. So look at using good heart healthy oils. It could be cold pressed like kachi gani mustard oil, til oil, rice bran oil. Definitely cold pressed coconut oil is the best. And however, in moderation only. And ghee, clarified butter is also excellent for good fats. Just moderate. During your PMS, you moderate the amount of fat so that, it doesn't delay with the, the
absorption.
Kind of that it sets in. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So that's great. I think we have one question. Apeksha is she's the one who asked us about the dark chocolate, and I think she's again asking us another question. So she's saying, I'm a big fan of adrak chai. It has helped me during periods, but during summers, because of the heat, I don't feel like drinking tea. So any suggestions for substitutions for tea at her tea time, and whenever is her tea time, any substitutions on that?
Apeksha, thanks for coming back and good to have you interact with us. So for the summers, you could definitely, if you feel that you're a fan of tea, many times I also use teas. And here another tip is, if it's black tea or white tea, you need to have boiling temperature, 100 degrees. So where you really see the, water being very hot. If it is green tea, or those kind of teas, you need only 80 degrees, meaning that the water just needs to come to a point where you see the steam, so you switch it off, wait for 1 odd minute or 2 minutes, and then you use the tea leaves. So in summer you could still do the same thing, boil the ginger, allow it to cool a bit, and when you feel that the water is now steaming, you can add your lovely green tea, black tea, white tea, any of the teas that you like, and allow it to cool a bit, and you could consume it chilled as iced tea. So I mean, that could be an option, of course. And if you like cooler beverages, probably, I don't know, buttermilk or anything else that you find appetizing.
Okay. Apeksha, I don't know if that helped answer your question. Do you have any follow-up at all? You can put it on the, the comments, and we can take it up. So I think, we have covered what we have come here for today. In terms of how food and mood is connected, and what are some of the important things we need to remember in terms of what we put in our bodies, especially during we have these weird mood swings going on, especially when we are menstruating, before, after, and all of those things. So that's been great. Thank you so much for that, Geeta. And also on the preparations, I think I was a fan of sunflower oil when we used to cook, but I think in the last few years we have kind of shifted to we try to change oils as we use them. We don't try to keep it constant, and I think that has helped, and that has come from my father-in-law actually. He's a big believer in Ayurveda, so he got that that in, and I think that is something that might help in terms of our heart health. So thank you for that. So I think Apeksha has got her question answered, and I don't see. Yeah, so she's saying thanks for the tips. So I think she gets her answer. Anything else you
Chamomile
want
tea,
to?
you could also try chamomile tea.
Okay,
It's got
Apeksha.
a calming effect, yeah. So chamomile tea, and I think, like you said, because also they have something called as theanine, because they have a calming effect. The green tea, so yeah, iced tea or herbal teas are a good option. Hibiscus
Okay.
too, so many other things that you get now.
Yeah, there's so much in the market. It's got really confusing. She has another question, so we'll just wait till she types that in. Before that, Geeta, anything else you want to add? Any important tips before we, finish off with this session that we
Yes,
need
I
to
think
kind
for
of
athletes
remember?
also, yeah. I like I said, boiling is a good option because that's one of the safest methods. So you could also, boil your potatoes or sweet potatoes. And one tip is, if you don't want to deep fry it and make it very heavy, then you could just kind of caramelize that. I know that a lot of athletes like that. So, and particularly when combined sweet potatoes with cinnamon, and cinnamon is also good to control the craving. So certain minerals like your chromium to another again cinnamon, when you use only Ceylon cinnamon, because the colloquially or commonly available cinnamon has got a lot of anti-nutritional property. Okay, if
Okay.
I'm coumarin, or it's not very
Okay.
healthy. So if
Okay.
one not be, you use a commercially, what you pick up from the supermarket, which is very reasonable. That is not the healthy one. So Ceylon cinnamon also helps cut cravings. So I think I think more or less we've given them a good gist and, options that they can look at, different varied food groups. In the end, I think keep it simple, practical, because this is definitely long drawn. Don't have
Yeah.
this is not going to change overnight. So, just trying to be very saintly and trying to approach it only for those 2 days may not work. So like I say,
Yeah.
just keep it in a sustainable way that you are able to do this for the longer term. I think that is the takeaway from today.
Yes, and she just has one more question about Kokum. I mean, you get this Kokum juice, right? Which you kind of just add in water and have. Do you think that's also a good option? I mean, if she can have it
Yes,
at
yes.
cold.
I wish I had a little more knowledge about that, but this Garcinia Cambodia, I think it's the same one, mangosteen,
I
if I'm
think
not
so. Yes.
mistaken. Yeah,
Yes.
yes, definitely. Anything traditional and simple, particularly, a locally available, please go with tried and tested option, because some of these, again, depends. Are they homemade? I mean, depends on the recipe. Many times there's also a whole lot of sugar that is added to make it appetizing. Unfortunately, our outlook is, you make anything sugary or oily, they think it is tasty. And honestly,
Yeah.
that may not be necessary, because, like I always give, my thoughts on what I think of sugar. Sugar is not bad. An athlete absolutely needs the sugar before training, during training, sometimes even after training. But when it is used in the right amount and for the right purpose, just because you walk for 20 minutes on treadmill, you don't need the sugar. Whereas an
Sure.
athlete has 4 hours of training and this can't sustain.
Yeah.
The glycogen is only 80 grams, I think, or I forget now, what is it, 80 mg, I forget. So there's very limited amount of sugar stored in our blood and in our liver. At a point, it runs out. So which means
Yeah.
that there is a need for you to supplement, or you will feel hypoglycemia, blood sugars fall, you
Yeah.
feel tired.
Yeah.
So to
Yeah.
sustain the higher training, athletes have a higher need. So sugars are not bad. Supplementation, like somebody asked about vitamin D, is absolutely safe. There's no stigma to saying I will not take it. So I think these are things that we really want to change the perception and educate the athletes on.
Sure. Okay. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, we meet again next Tuesday, same time at 5 p.m. And we look forward to having you there as well. Again, like I said last time, if you look at this, if you're looking at the session, not live, but later on, and you have any question for Geeta on whatever you've heard through the session, you need to kind of, ask us immediately, because it will not just inform you, but it will inform us and all the other athletes who might benefit from this session. So do put in your questions on our DM. You can DM Geeta or you can DM us on Simply Sport, and we will make sure we take them up. So do ask as many questions as you have. And thank you, Geeta, again for joining us. We look forward to having you for our third session coming up on Tuesday. So thank you so much again.
Thanks, Aditi, and thanks Simply Sports Foundation. It's good we're doing this, and I hope it's helping a lot of viewers. We don't have many live right now, but I hope that the ones who are watching this education helps them.
Yes, it will. I'm definitely sure. I think it will be very, very helpful, especially for athletes who are serious about their business. I mean, this is quite important to understand and know. So I'm sure that it will help a lot of people. So thank you again,
Wonderful.
and I'll see you again on Tuesday. Bye bye.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for everybody who joined us. Bye bye.
Yes, thank you so much, guys. Thank you.